We have now passed another grim milestone in this genocide against Gaza. We have passed 100 days of since the start of the war back in October. And the story so far, as told by mainstream media, has been unfortunate because of the light touch approach they have given to this conflict, and also the forced neutrality. They want to give a balanced view that everything is nice and rosy between two parties who are fighting at equal front. There's a false equilibrium between the two parties, which is inhumane, unfair, unjust on the people who are actually on the oppressed side for the last 75 years. And now, for the last over 3 months, they have been facing genocide, i.e., the Palestinian people. But I guess the pressure has now built up to a certain extent, and this week South Africa started the ICJ case against Israel. That you would imagine mainstream media has nowhere else to go but to also give the other side of the picture, given the extent of the reach of social media, where people are seeing images in real time, direct from the battlefield, from Gaza. There was a little glimmer of hope in the past week, actually, on a couple of mainstream news outlets here in UK. The first one, we'll see a clip of it, is on Sky News, and the guest being interviewed is Andrew Fisher, who was former Director Policy of Labour. Let's have a look.
Highlights is the extreme double standards. Here we are, the Houthis have been attacking shipping lanes, no deaths so far, thankfully. Israel's been bombarding Gaza for the last 3 months. Tens of thousands of people died, children being amputated without anaesthetic, and that's fine. No sanctions on Israel, no strikes against them, no arms embargo. But
I guess
the
this is because this is against the UK target, though, right? Is that not?
It's because we don't care about international law or human rights. We have this rhetoric that we do, but we don't. This is absolute nonsense, and this whole conflict is exposing that. We say that, the Iran-backed Houthi rebels, well, they've been bombed by the US and UK-backed Saudi Arabia for the last 10 years. Actually, the last Labour administration was calling for sanctions on Saudi Arabia over this for an arms embargo. Hilary Benz, somebody who's serving under Keir Starmer, was leading this within the last shadow cabinet. So, we talk about this in completely bizarre ways that spins it into this sort of thing of one side is bad and the other side's crimes are airwashed. I mean, we've got a case in the International Court of Justice today brought by South Africa against Israel for genocide. We're not talking about that. We're talking about some interruption to shipping lanes. I mean, it's pretty small-scale stuff when tens of thousands of people are being killed. And, I don't care what adjective you call it, whether you call it a massacre, a slaughter, ethnic cleansing, genocide, it doesn't really much matter. Tens of thousands of people are being killed, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about some shipping lanes. It's perverse, really. And the rest of the world...
That was a good interview. And I was surprised, actually, the host was quiet throughout that interaction. But I would find it challenging if I was her and trying to defend the position of Israel, or rather here the position of US-UK, in the face of the planted double standards we are seeing here. Andrew made an important but an obvious observation here that you have on one hand people being killed for the last 3 months. Tens of thousands have been killed, hundreds are being killed every day, including children, and no one bats an eye. Let alone actions. There hasn't been any condemnation from the likes of US and UK. And where you have ships being turned around because of the Houthi fighters, then that is creating this ripple effect where they want to send their warships, and obviously they have launched strikes against Yemen. So having these ships being blocked, it's so important, it's so vital, and it's such a moral outrage for US and UK that they have attacked Yemen for that very reason. And for the last 3 months, their very strong ally, Israel, has been killing Palestinian, as I said, hundreds of them every day. And we are talking about children. The biggest demographic here in terms of the victims are children. And no one actually even puts pressure on Israel to stop the warfare. And there's no end in sight as we speak. So it's a very obvious comment made by Andrew, but it's just unfortunate. It seems a bit surreal that observation has to be made, that if ships are being blocked, it has increased the insurance for these shipping companies. It has also put pressure, possible pressure, inflation pressure on the economy of these countries, that they have taken these measures to attack another country. And that, action taken by Yemen to block those ships is not an isolated event. It's directly linked to Gaza. If they're too concerned about these shipping routes, all they have to do is to stop the war, stop the genocide in Gaza. And it will achieve two objectives. One is that obviously it will stop the killing of the people, which these guys are not interested in. And it will also stop the blockage of the ships, which is creating this pressure on the leaders, the economic pressure on US and UK. The other clip which we are going to see here is from Newsnight. It is an interview conducted by Victoria Derbyshire, and I was really impressed by the challenge she put forth to Israeli spokesperson Yemen Levy, who has been going on the BBC, on British news outlets, on US news outlets, and he's British born, so he's quite articulate. He knows how to face the media here, how to put diplomatic face and defend the atrocities of Israel. Let's have a look. It's quite an interesting interaction between the presenter and Yemen Levy.
It is tragic and appalling that South Africa has decided to play advocate for the devil and serve as the legal arm of Hamas.
I'm going to pause you there, if I may, Mr. Levy, because almost every point I put to you or every question I ask you, you respond with an answer that is not relevant to the question.
Well, let me answer directly then. The
Please.
lawyer there who is serving as the legal representative of Hamas, accusing Israel of genocide, is presenting a topsy-turvy reality in which Hamas does not exist, it hasn't taken hostages. Israel decided one bright morning to start bombing Gaza. On October 7th, we suffered an act of genocide. We suffered an act of genocide when Hamas invaded our country and burned, beheaded, tortured, mutilated, raped and abducted as many people as it could, as brutally as it could. And in response, we have launched a defensive campaign with very clear objectives: to destroy the Hamas regime so that it cannot hurt our people again, and to bring back the hostages who are still trapped in the terror dungeons. Those goals are very clear, and we have been pursuing them in full accordance with international law.
And that is disputed. I want to ask you about these comments made by Israeli politicians since October the 7th, and hopefully we can bring up the quotes. Here we are. This is your president. It's an entire nation out there that's responsible. He's referring to Gazans. Have a look at this. The next one. We are now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba. Nakba, as people know, is a term for catastrophe after the 1948 war, a war used by Palestinians about ethnic cleansing. And we all have one common goal: erasing the Gaza Strip from the face of the earth. Can you see why some people believe that you absolutely don't want Palestinians any longer in Gaza?
We think we have been very clear, both in word and in deed.
In those words?
Well, Mr. Victoria does not make decisions on security matters in Israel. We think we've been very clear, both in word and in deed, that the people of Gaza are not our enemy. Our enemy is the Hamas regime, and that is why we have gone further than any army in the history of the world to try to get civilians out of harm's way. Now, we just had the former...
I'm going to bring you back to the words of those politicians, if I may. We're now actually rolling out the Gaza Nakba. Nakba, the Palestinian term for ethnic cleansing. Those are the words of a government minister in your government.
Talk about a little bit of historical context, what the Palestinians refer to as the Nakba.
I'm just asking you about those words.
No, so I want to talk about that word Nakba. When the Palestinians use the word Nakba, they are referring to the consequences of the decision in 1948 to try to scuttle the creation of a Jewish state. Under the UN General Assembly resolution, they declared war in 1948. That war of annihilation did not go their way, and there were consequences as a result.
And how is that relevant to what your government minister has said now? Because what he is saying is we want to get rid of these people.
No, we do not want to get rid of these people. We have been very clear in word and in deed as a government, and as the Prime Minister and the Defence Minister have said, that we urge civilians to get to safety in the safe zone. We've been urging them to go to the safe zone.
There are no safe zones, you know that.
There is no... The Al-Mawasi zone has been rendered unsafe because Hamas has decided to shoot rockets out of it. Hamas decided to shoot rockets out of it, and the United Nations has said absolutely nothing about rockets being fired.
People near the Rafah crossing.
And it is absolutely tragic that Hamas continues to double down on its human shield strategy. I don't know whether your viewers understand the extent to which in the last 16 years, Hamas redesigned Gaza's cityscape in order to hide its military assets underneath civilian areas. And we have made extensive warnings for civilians to leave. We've placed 70,000 individual phone calls, sent dropped 7 million leaflets, 14 million phone calls, 14 million text messages. We have been going more than any army in history, and I'm quite happy to be fact-checked, more warnings than all armies in the history of counter-terrorism warfare put together to urge civilians to get out of harm's way. They are not our enemy. Our enemy is the rapist regime that perpetrated
There is no such thing out of harm's way in Gaza.
7th.
I'm going to pause you there because we're out of time.
We would like the creation of safe areas, and we would like the UN to cooperate with us instead of condemning Israel for designating safe zones, which is what they have spuriously been doing.
There's no such thing as a safe area in Gaza. We're going to leave it there.
We hope there very much will be the day after Hamas.
Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you.
I actually agree with the Israeli spokesperson when he said they have been clear about their deed and actions. They have been, the politicians have been clear what they want to achieve in Gaza. They want to exterminate the population of Gaza. They will impose collective punishment, which the Israeli president said at the start of the war. They have done that. They have walked the talk literally. So at least he wasn't hiding the open secret there. They unfortunately have been quite explicit about their intentions. Number of their politicians, as shown in this interview, and there's just 3 examples. There are dozens of examples, including from Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, citing the Torah to justify the collective punishment of the people of Gaza. The other point which was made by Victoria at the end of the interview, and fortunately Levy wasn't able to defend that and lie about it, was the sad state of affairs in Gaza, that there's no safe zone. It's one of the only conflict I know actually where people are facing indiscriminate attacks and they have nowhere else to go. In other conflicts, we had horrendous examples in the 20th century. People were able to escape to other parts of the country or cross borders and go to other countries. But we're talking about an area which is smaller than the size of London, and people are not able to escape that area. And where they were told by the Israeli military that you go there, it's a safe zone, Israel subsequently bombed those apparent safe zones. And the absurd reason they would give is that there were Hamas fighters there, as if Hamas is omnipresent, not giving any evidence to prove those claims, but always scapegoating them to absolve them of their responsibilities. And I really do hope that the case brought against them by South Africa of genocide will progress swiftly, and there's mountain of evidence. There couldn't be a more clear case, and hopefully that brings to limelight in front of the whole world. A lot of the people still are being propagated the wrong message, and this is from the governments, the US, UK, Canada. They have rejected the claim of South Africa, which is just unfortunate. It's a knee-jerk reaction. But we do hope that it come to fruition and the ruling against Israel comes swiftly. But at least there's glimmer of hope, as we were discussing. In mainstream media, it seems the tide is turning, and they're now catching up after 100 days, better late than ever, that there is an ongoing genocide in Gaza.